Hello and welcome to Leveraging AI for Drug Discovery, and thank you so much for joining us. I'm Brent Jensen, Edmonton Global's Director of Business Development, and I'm here in downtown Edmonton, standing just atop our beautiful river valley and just outside the Edmonton Global offices. In the future, I'd love the opportunity to welcome you here in person, but for now, this will have to do. The global healthcare AI market was valued at $4.8 billion in 2019. It's projected to reach $99.5 billion by 2027. That's an increase of almost 20 times in the next 6 years. The opportunity in this emerging sector is massive, and early adopters will have a distinct advantage, but pharmaceutical companies are facing some challenges when it comes to AI adoption. From a lack of access to talent, to knowledge gaps, to limited access to healthcare data. While there are barriers to unlocking potential that AI can bring to the life sciences sector, the Edmonton region has unique strengths in the areas of both AI research and pharmacology. In fact, the region is home to both Richard Sutton, long considered the godfather of reinforcement learning, and the Nobel laureate, Dr. Michael Houghton, who recently received this honor for his role in the discovery of hepatitis C, who is now at the cusp of developing a successful vaccine for that same disease here in the Edmonton region. In the Edmonton region, we're at the heart of the intersection of virology, immunology, drug discovery, and artificial intelligence. What's happening here is attracting attention, and it's leading to real-world breakthroughs. From the Roche Centre of Excellence, part of a pan-Canadian strategy to leverage Canada's strength in AI, to research and development happening here at our post-secondary institutions. From a local startup, 48-hour discovery, using AI to accelerate drug development, to another local company, Drug Bank, who has built the world's largest pharmaceutical knowledge database. There is a lot to showcase, and we're excited to dive in. So with that, I'll hand it over to my colleague, Chris McLeod, who will be hosting a number of these innovative thinkers and industry experts that are working at this intersection of life sciences and AI, both within our region and beyond. Chris, over to you.
Thanks, Brent. There's a lot of opportunity and activity at the intersection of pharmaceuticals, health, and AI. I'd like to start by acknowledging that we are hosting this event on Treaty 6 territory, a traditional meeting grounds, gathering place, and traveling route to the Cree, Saulteaux, Blackfoot, Métis, Dene, Nakota Sioux. We acknowledge the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit whose footsteps have marked these lands for centuries. Let's jump right in. It's my pleasure to introduce our first panelist, Fanny C., Roche, Head of Artificial Intelligence at Roche Canada. They've recently launched their AI Centre of Excellence in collaboration with the 3 institutes of the Pan-Canadian AI Strategy, one of which is the Alberta Machine Intelligence Institute, located here in the Edmonton region. Fanny, thanks so much for joining us.
Great to be here, Chris.
As one of the largest players in global health, Roche is probably the best example of the new paradigm in health. The line between traditional pharma and overall life sciences is really blurring or disappearing entirely. That's the concept of One Roche, right?
That's correct. Roche is in the middle of transforming from a pharmaceutical and diagnostic product-driven company to a health solutions company, and our business mandate is to provide impact across the patient journey. Given our progression into data and insights, it has provided us the opportunity to create value beyond diagnosis and treatment. This includes prevention, survivorship, and end of life. One Roche means we are working even more closely together as an organization to bring the right solutions to the right patients at the right time.
So what's the role of AI in tomorrow's public health? In the past, we've talked about companies like Roche as producing products, drugs, but you're really moving beyond this.
Absolutely. At Roche, we see ourselves not as product sellers, but partners of those in the system who are tackling big challenges in healthcare. Our goals are bold, grand, and we aim for transformational change to breed exponential impact for patients and the populations they represent. This involves the use of AI and advanced analytics to provide insights to populations who are at high risk of specific health conditions. With this knowledge, we and our public-private partners may jointly provide resources to meet the needs more efficiently. An example is our work in COVID-19. When the pandemic hit last year, we developed the Roche Data Science Coalition, which was composed of academic and private sector organizations working together on COVID capacity management solutions. This included the Alberta Machine Intelligence Institute, who acted as a true partner in the most uncertain of times. They were able to bring their world-leading AI expertise to help when the world needed it the most. The outputs of this coalition were able to help inform pandemic task forces globally. This included Ramadan in Pakistan and reopening practices in Algeria and testing strategies in Ireland.
Wow, that's really interesting. There's so much research that's been conducted, so many papers, trials, procedures, example or a proof of what works and what doesn't. But no one has yet to build a true open science portal for overall population health, let alone drug discovery. What we have now at the global level is fragmented, often redundant. How does your work with One Roche tackle this?
It's an excellent question. Discussions around data access have been prevalent even before the pandemic. However, the benefits of what this could bring were a promise or often notional. When the Roche Data Science Coalition made COVID-19 data available to solutioners and showed what the benefit could be, it was that we provided evidence to the world on what democratizing data could look like. We provided evidence that wasn't necessarily prevalent. We demonstrated an expedited path of digital solutions and insight development, as well as path to knowledge mobilization for good. We also showed how academic and private sector collaboration can lead to incredible things. As a result, we formalized some of the relationships from the coalition and created the One Roche Artificial Intelligence Center of Excellence, which further mobilizes open data and open science, not only for COVID, but other therapeutic areas. In April, as a collaborator of a patient foundation called EndALS and AnswerALS, the Roche AICOE launched an open data science competition targeting earlier diagnosis and new biomarker discovery. This represents a multidisciplinary group of cross-border healthcare providers, scientists, and patient foundations who are all working together to fight ALS.
Wow, that's exciting. There's been so much work done on ALS with the bucket challenge and other things over the past several years. So it's great to see AI being applied to that problem. Can you dive a little deeper into the kinds of opportunities that, maybe in addition to ALS, that AI can solve? Maybe an example of what you might be able to do with, say, natural language processing or NLP?
So that's a really interesting question, because we've always looked at NLP in terms of adverse events in the pharmaceutical industry. But now what we're doing is we're actually looking at data to see whether or not we can find more information about COVID, such as in the area of long haulers, where peer-reviewed publication is not rampant, where we don't have the long history of a particular condition. So we're actually trying to see whether or not AI can keep up with the variants or the changes in COVID, and see what the border is or how we can stretch the limits of artificial intelligence in the practice of medicine.
It's like almost real time.
Absolutely.
It's almost real time. Wow, that's amazing.
Our fingers crossed.
Yeah, that's fantastic. When you look ahead to what's happening next in the pharma industry, what are the big challenges you're facing, and where do you see it going next?
In pharma, I see movements towards more partnering in technology-based companies to help build a sustainable backbone for a more focused data and insights-driven business. Also, the skill sets within pharma, we're targeting more people who are digital savvy, have analytical backgrounds, and are able to utilize digital tools in medicine.
So, and I know we've talked a little bit about maybe having AI even look right at doctors' notes and try to figure out, from a patient's notes, kind of what else could be happening. Can you just expand maybe a little bit on that?
Absolutely. In the EMR world, there is a wealth of structured data, but there is also a wealth of unstructured data. Mm-hmm. And so being able to mine those insights might lead us into feature sets that we may not have necessarily identified before at medical presentation. So if we're able to identify things that we've never been able to identify and associate it to, let's say, progression, we might be able to treat our patients better.
Wow, that's really cool. You're working closely with teams here in the Edmonton region again, the Alberta Machine Intelligence Institute, the University of Alberta, and many others. From your perspective, how important is access to talent?
Access to talent is key for any organization, and it is a priority at Roche. I'd have to say, working with Amy, Cam Linke and his team, Luke Kumar, they've been fantastic. Their expertise in applied AI, collaborative solutioning, and bold visions are what drive the collaborations to further elevate Canada in the global AI space. We lean on luminaries such as Russ Greiner, Randy Goebel, to build the healthcare system of the future. They have raised the profile of Roche and have augmented our own scientific teams.
That's fantastic. And we work really closely with the team at Amy, and they are fantastic. So thanks so much, Fanny. We'll come back to you in the roundtable. And if anyone has questions for Fanny, or really for any of our panelists, please enter them into the Q&A section, and we'll do our best to address them. Our next panelist is Dr. John McKee. He's the Director of Clinical Trials Unit at the Cross Cancer Institute here in Edmonton and Chair of the Alberta Pre-Phase Cancer Program. He's also Professor of Oncology at the University of Alberta and sits on the steering committee for the university's Precision Health Initiative. He's got a really good understanding of what's happening at the intersection of research and AI happening right here. John, thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Good morning, Chris. Thanks so much for the invitation.
So Fanny gave us some really interesting insight into AI from an industry perspective. As a leading researcher and clinical practitioner, can you share a little bit about the types of projects you've got on the go, particularly where you're seeing AI applied to precision health and therapeutics?
Well, absolutely. There's a lot going on here in Edmonton, and we'll just start with one example. There's a company, it's a University of Alberta spin-out company that I've been working with called Illumisonics, and it has solved the technical challenge of real-time diagnosis of cancer. Wow. So using new laser technology, you can take fresh tissue, either from a biopsy of a tumor or from a surgical resection, and you can get histology that looks like H&E staining, which is the way that a pathologist would normally look at a cancer to say what it is, whether it's cancer, whether in fact you actually hit what you thought you were hitting, or whether the edges of the resection were involved. The problem that we have is the people that actually get those biopsies and the surgeons who actually cut things out have no idea what they're looking at, what is shown at the screen. And the pathologists are not on site to give them that real-time feedback. So by virtue of having solved one technical problem, we have digital images that are generated that are absolutely ripe for provisional diagnosis using artificial intelligence technology. And this will allow iterative feedback during the biopsy procedure or the surgical procedure to guide better care. And also, it's always nice if you're someone who thinks they may have cancer, you've gone into the radiologist suite, the radiologist sticks a needle in, drops it on the microscope and says, you know, Mr. X, Mrs. Y, the good news is you don't have cancer. And you don't have to wait the usual 2 weeks for the standard histology processing and then the pathologist to review it before that feedback is there. And if you happen to be one of my wonderful surgical colleagues who get up early in the morning when I'm sleeping and they go into the operating room and cut out tumors, they know that, in fact, they got it all, rather than in many cancer operations, 25% or more, where they didn't clear the edges and have to go back in for another surgery, or we have to be more aggressive about other cancer therapies. So that's just one application, and that's a very specific one that's very patient-centered. But there are system-wide applications too, and this is where, after having worked in cancer medicine for 25 years, and what we do is guided by the clinical trials, but not by real-world evidence. So it's not what happened to my patients or what happened to the community that we treat to guide our management. It's actually what someone did 5 years prior in selected cancer research centers around the world. So by virtue of getting all the data on our cancer patients, all of the data from our Alberta with the healthcare system information going into one single electronic repository, we're going to be able to get wisdom out of these bits of data by virtue of using artificial intelligence to see the patterns that we might not ever have been able to have access to. and use that information to feed back to better patient care. So it's a tremendously exciting time.
Yeah, it's super exciting. And I love that you're talking about both at the microscopic level of actually recognizing patterns in tumors and cells, and also then recognizing patterns at the whole system level to understand what's actually happening within a system. It's absolutely fascinating. And it's a great way to apply optics of AI to cells. Fascinating. So talking about big data, so access to data is really valuable. And as you know, Alberta has the largest single health authority in Canada, including data from a diverse population of 4.5 million people. So accessing health data is a common challenge around the world. What do you see happening here that will help unlock that potential that all this information holds?
Well, what we have going on in Alberta now is convergence and alignment. Everyone now realizes that these data, which are generated by the public purse actually treating people, belongs to the community. And by virtue of that, the ethics are now tipping towards the free availability to analyze these data. Admittedly, they'll be de-identified. Chris, I don't have to know the details or identify, the fact that you might have some medical issue, but we can still look forward and as a group sift through those data and provide information both to the healthcare providers, clinicians like me, to the healthcare system. So administrators who for the first time in history can take their multi-billion dollar budget and actually manage healthcare rather than react to whatever looks like it might be an issue and propose a plausible solution without any iterative feedback on the interventions that they change. And also pharma. So we know that the manufacturers of systemic therapies need to have real world data to guide the utility of their therapies and design, better and more effective approaches. And this will all be able to be provided within the context of Alberta because we are now, as a single payer system, all moving in that direction.
Oh, it's fascinating. We talk a lot in business everywhere about using data to drive decisions, and it's wonderful to see that being applied to public health as well. There's some incredible research happening here. We have the globally recognized Li Ka-shing Institute of Virology. We have companies like Antos Pharmaceuticals. They've developed a COVID vaccine that's entered phase 1 of clinical trials. Can you share with us some of the potential you see coming out of the research in virology, oncology, or other areas here?
Well, I mean, there's so many options to choose from, but the most exciting things. Okay, well, okay. Can I pick two, please?
Pick two. Okay, pick two.
Okay, first of all, John Lewis has a way of delivering oligonucleotide therapy, gene therapy, DNA, RNA, which is a very, very well studied and safe and very effective package. So essentially, the toxicity all comes from the coating, which is safe. The biggest toxicity is you dilute the animals by giving too much of it, and they can't find any problems except they become diluted. So, I mean, it's a tremendous technology. And with the understanding of the regulators in Canada, we now know that they see this and the ability to plug and play for bespoke therapy for small volume diseases, or in the case of COVID, rapidly adapt your nucleic acid vaccination to evolving strains. This is going to have a quicker iterative process than we've ever seen. Okay, the other thing that I'm really excited about is the cell therapy opportunities that are here within Alberta. We have the Alberta Cell Therapy Manufacturing Facility. There's only one other in Canada that gives us the ability to take a patient's own cells, manipulate them, and under GMP conditions, infuse them back into the patient as a systemic therapy for cancer, rheumatologic diseases, diabetes. And in fact, with the AI backbone that tells us what we should be reinfusing into people after appropriately diagnosing in the case of cancer, the genetic abnormalities, or in rheumatologic diseases, the immunologic perturbations, or in diabetes, a combination of both. We could have a truly cutting edge ability to give individualized, personalized cell therapies within Alberta. And that's tremendously exciting, using your own cells to treat your own disease.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I'm glad you asked for two, because both the gene therapies work And the work that that John Lewis and the team are doing at Entos is absolutely amazing. But you probably could have taken 15. So again, that's super interesting, and we're looking forward to hearing more from you, John, in the roundtable discussion. Our next panelist is Jessica Tsao, VP of Data Science and Information Technology at 48 Hour Discovery. They've developed incredible technology that both de-risks and accelerates the drug discovery process. And they've established satellite sites in California and South Korea. Jessica, thanks for being here.
Hi, Chris. It's my pleasure.
So Jessica, can you share a little bit about the technology that 48 Hour Discovery has built and how it makes what you're doing unique on a global scale?
Yeah, sure. I guess our technology platform is very unique. It offers the genetic coding library to provide the leads in the peptide or microcycle therapeutic space to the global pharmaceutical companies. And the way we treat those molecules is very different from the way how molecules are typically treated. So traditional pharma treat molecules like those books in traditional libraries. Basically, different compounds will be in different tubes, different books on different shelves. And you want to find a book of interest, you kind of have to go through all the shelves. If you want to find the compound that is specific to your target, you need to go through all those tubes. But at 40 Hour Discovery, we treat them differently. We put all those compounds, about billions of compounds, into the same tube, and we're encoding them with DNA. So basically, our unique platform pipeline can work with any type of target. If you have your target, you ship it to us through mail, and we take it out from the mailbox, and then we dip it into a cup or a tube of solutions where there are, I guess, billions of molecules. And then we use DNA sequencer to get the data, push it to the cloud. We use our fully automated proprietary machine learning algorithms to analyze the data. So at the end, we will provide a list of molecules to our clients as a potential lead for those targets. So this is our uniqueness, and we have been working successfully so far. We are working contracted with 5 major pharma, and some of them are already return customers.
Yeah, that's absolutely amazing. I think about when I was younger, going to the library, using your example, flipping through the card catalog to try to find a book. What you're actually talking about is knowing, a sentence or a phrase that you're looking for, searching all of those books simultaneously, and then also testing all of those phrases to see which one works the best, which is amazing. And doing all of that, super, super quickly. So it's really fascinating work. So 48 Hour Discovery has a number of projects underway, including contracts with 5 of the top pharmaceutical companies in the world. You recently announced a project with Merck, and getting the attention of a company like Merck is no easy feat. What's unique and compelling about what 48 Hour Discovery is doing, and how are you drawing the attention of some of the world's biggest pharma companies?
Well, I guess because more and more people seeing our success, so big pharma are coming to us, looking for collaboration or working together. And our unique platform offers the billion scale. I would say that is huge amount, billion scale of molecules, and we can screen them all at once, right? And other than that, we also have a unique portfolio of the chemical modification of those phage libraries. So with that, we kind of be able to get the leads not only in the standard peptide version, but also in microcyclic peptides, which has been shown the great selectivity and also GI stability. This is what people are looking at. And also our platform offers data searching, cloud visualization, and secure, but also open data access to our clients. That is a unique thing we have. And I guess all of this together kind of make the foundation of our success. And more, like we also announced the joint venture earlier this year with our partner in Korea, and that is this joint venture is called Quantum Intelligence Discovery, which will bring our discovery into a next stage, like combine the actual physical chemistry with those quantum mechanics and those cutting edge AI technology. I guess by doing that, we're kind of be able to move our market from only a 21 billion peptide-driven market
Only.
to even larger $1 trillion, small, even smaller molecule market. And by that time, we will be attracting even more and more attention from all over the world, I guess.
Wow, that's pretty fascinating. I only pretend to understand half the things you're talking about, because the level of detail and ability 48-hour discovery is absolutely amazing. And you're using, again, just immense data sets, billions to trillions of pieces of data, and applying ML to them. Your work on protein targets in particular, just reading about that is really interesting. Can you explain how your modeling works and the kinds of insights it can generate?
Yeah, like one perfect example is we have a library with billions of molecules. It's like we have a cup with all the molecules inside, and we dip the target into the cup. And then we send the samples to sequencer, DNA sequencer for the analysis. And then we use our automated platform server to processing those data, as well as using the machine learning algorithm to fit the data. It would be billion scale data to fit those data into statistical models and testing those hypotheses and getting those potential leads. But other than that, we also do clustering on those potential leads. So basically, we're not only looking for single leads, we discover leads of family of leads. Wow. So that is very useful in drug discovery.
Wow, that's really amazing. Let's talk risk for a second. The pharmaceutical industry is famous for having multiple pipelines for product development, most of which never result in an approved drug. What you're doing both de-risks and accelerates drug discovery, potentially saving millions or even billions of dollars. And you can turn portions of this over in as little as 48 hours. The power of AI on drug discovery sure sounds like it's going to be revolutionary.
Yeah, well, yes, 48 hours is kind of a tricky time, because if every client come to us, no matter how hard those target is, and if we can provide the result in 48 hours, then we could potentially be out of business very soon, right? But the way we describe 48 hour, like why we call it 48 hour, because if we think about very simple projects, which contains the minimum necessary steps we need to do the lead discovery in the billion scale library, we can call it a unit, and some targets, if they are very difficult, and if the clients wants a very complex compound, then those projects is kind of big. It might contains like more than 5 units. But in a single, like in a simple project, we kind of use 48 hours to do the discovery. Like, for example, in the morning, 8:30 a.m., I think, the scientists come to the lab and they sit in front of the bench using the computer to do the planning in our cloud, spending 30 minutes there. And then they will start to do the experiment, mix the target with the billion scale library. And by 4:30 in the afternoon, the samples will be ready and sent for sequencing. And wow. Even with those advanced sequencer we are currently using, we still need to wait for about 18 hours to get the data back. Right, so that brings us to noontime the next day. And then by that time, our automated server will start to processing those data, do the analysis, and create the results. and the report will be available on our cloud by midnight the next day. So it basically is 48 hours, and it kind of based on the limit of the current technology, including the sequencing time and the wet lab bench time. We cannot control, right? And yeah, this is why we call it 48 hours.
Yeah, super interesting. And we're going to hear more from Jessica when we get to the roundtable part of the discussion. As a reminder, if you have questions for any of our panelists, you can enter them into the Q&A section, and we'll get to them during the roundtable. So thanks again, Jessica. Our last panelist is Michael Wilson, CEO of DrugBank, a company that is scaling up quickly. DrugBank began as a spin-off company from the University of Alberta, and they have since built the world's largest online database of drug and drug target information. Mike, thanks for being here this morning.
Hi, great to be here.
Can you give us a quick high-level overview of how you're using AI in drug discovery and drug repurposing?
Sure. So with DrugBank, we work with at DrugBank we work with a lot of different types of pharma companies that are using AI in drug discovery. AI can be applied at a lot of different areas in pharma companies, but in particular, we work with companies in an earlier stage where they're identifying candidates, they're working to de-risk candidates as well. And so companies that are applying machine learning models to make predictions about those drugs. So that could be everything from predicting side effects to looking at other factors around target binding. And it also can be, really, there's some really interesting applications in drug repurposing where we're looking at taking existing drugs or drugs that failed at a certain point during clinical trials and putting them to a new application. And sometimes that can also mean combining drugs to create a new use with those existing drugs. And so that means looking at all of that data, all those things we know about how those drugs work, and identifying potential new applications based on that information. And yeah, there's a number of different small sub-problems within AI drug discovery. And DrugBank basically supplies a lot of data, a lot of information that's structured, and our customers work with us to make their machine learning models better, to train those machine learning models to incorporate what we already know about drugs and how they work into those machine learning models.
Well, I'm surprised to hear about drugs that failed actually going through to figure out how else they could be used. I never would have thought of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's in certain cases you have drugs that are proven to be, they're safe enough, but they weren't effective at the original application, and sometimes those can be a good source for repurposing. Repurposing is in particular, has a lot of benefit for rare diseases. So we have a number of customers working in the rare disease space. They're trying to really cut costs down as much as they can and identify ways to help rare diseases without having to go through this full process of starting from scratch.
Wow, that's super interesting. And again, if they're rare, you'd think that people may not be, or pharma companies, they may not be putting as much investment into that. But if there's other ways to come at the problem, that's really ingenious.
Yeah, it's really cool. We have one customer called Helix, and they've made some amazing advances. They've developed a number of drugs that are pretty far along in trials. So it's exciting to see where they're going.
Wow, very cool. So what are some of the major trends for AI in drug discovery?
Some of the big trends that we've been seeing are really leveraging structured data and knowledge bases. So the type of thing that we really focus on is structuring information and building those knowledge bases. So there's been a lot of trends towards graph-based AI models, so leveraging those structured information networks. And there's been a lot of work over the last while, of course, in deep learning. A lot of those advances have trickled into the drug discovery world. But yeah, one of the really exciting things we're seeing right now is this how we can leverage these graph-based knowledge structures to really take things to the next level with some of the AI work being done there. There's another big trend that we keep hearing over and over from a lot of the companies we're working with, which is how to get more value out of the data they already have. So pharma companies have a lot of real world data they've collected, a lot of experimental data. There's huge amounts of information there. Some of it, the issue is that it's unstructured. So we need to use tools like NLP to pull out information. Some of it is that you need to sort of be able to connect the dots between that data and some other data set to actually get the value out of it. So that's another big trend that we've been seeing with a lot of the companies that we're working with. And when you put all these things together, it's really exciting to see what kind of applications are coming out.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, I think back to some of the conversation with John and with Fanny and Jessica as well, that looking at the data and just how gigantic the data sets. So I completely agree with you. So how are pharma companies leveraging Drug Bank to accelerate their AI programs?
Yeah, so with Drug Bank, the key thing that we focus on is structuring knowledge. And our goal is to really capture everything that we know about drugs and how they work. So we work with data science teams, AI teams, and we bring Drug Bank's knowledge base into their applications and help to augment them using that. And so that can even include helping to connect the data that they already have into Drug Bank. It can include training new machine learning models, as I mentioned before. And yeah, that's kind of a key thing that we do. We also recently we've recently launched a new product, which is an NLP product that really focuses on extracting information, extracting content out of that structured or unstructured text.
Wow. Yeah, it's fascinating. Again, the potential for NLP, I think, is really amazing. So real-world evidence is a hot topic when it comes to drug approval and market access. How do you help?
Yeah, so when it comes to data, of course, any data is, you have to put it into context. You have to structure it in some way to actually turn it into information. When you just have data, you're not able to answer any questions from it yet. So totally. With a lot of these real world evidence applications, and it's a hot topic and a hot trend. Lots of different groups around the world are applying it in different places. So everything from applying at that drug discovery stage to identifying areas in the market where they can target their marketing, to identifying business intelligence type questions, is scoping the market, scaling, identifying new applications or new areas, new indications to target with their drugs. So there's a lot of different questions to answer there, and there's more and more things that earlier in the call today we mentioned Alberta Health Services and looking at how to make that data more accessible, how to bring de-identified records into making those accessible to companies to do more research. So there's a lot of similar things happening around the world, and it means there's a huge amount of data that can be turned into information, that can be turned into insights. So for us, the thing that we can help with is structuring that data, extracting knowledge from it, and then linking it back into Drug Bank, linking it back into our concepts. So we have a very broad set of concepts, from clinical information, such as the approved indications, what drugs are available, what products are available, what side effects do we know about, to the molecular side of things, the chemical structures, the targets, the drug metabolism. So there's a lot of different points where that information can be linked in, and then that puts it in context where you can now ask a lot of different questions, make a lot of different queries with that, and get insights.
Super interesting. And again, just a broad spectrum of things you're able to do with that data. It's really interesting. And again, what Drug Bank is doing is really exciting, and it's a great resource for pharma and drug development companies. So now let's bring back the rest of our panelists into the conversation. So thanks for rejoining us. Everyone, welcome back. And as a reminder, if you have questions for our panel, please enter them into the Q&A. So first question, how has drug discovery changed in the wake of COVID-19? John, you mentioned a little bit about this earlier, so let's start with you.
So I think COVID-19, for all the evil that it has done, has had one good effect, in that it's made regulatory agencies realize that they can be the problem, not necessarily the solution. And to that end, you've seen regulatory burdens and bureaucracy go by the wayside because there was actually scrutiny on the process happening in many jurisdictions, not only Canada. So with that in mind, I think there's an understanding that the old way of doing things is no longer compatible with the biotechnology that exists today, wherein within 6 weeks of identification of a new pathogen, you could have a vaccine candidate actually at GMP level ready to inject in people. But the regulatory burdens require months and potentially years under normal circumstances. So I think this is going to lead to an acceptance of the fact that the 21st century is one of biotechnology, and we can't be handling it with 19th century bureaucracies.
Yeah, love that. You know, I heard a talk a couple of years ago that really talked about biotech and how fast that curve is changing and how fast the AI curve is changing. When you add those two together, the world is going to change with what's coming next. So Jessica, I can see that you were nodding a lot there as John was speaking. Again, knowing that speed is one of your kind of core foundations of the company. What do you think about what John just said about, you know, how we need to be able to work at the speed that technology can now allow us?
Yeah, right. I think that time is very critical at this moment. Every year we have not only COVID, like every year we have new disease appear. People find a new disease. How can we react to this disease? And for like those diseases have target we don't have data at all before, right? So for the Edward discovery, we kind of has the capability to accelerate the discovery of the drug leads, get the data in days rather than like traditionally in months or years. I think how fast you get the data is very critical, and those data are the essential for later machine learning or drug discovery, right?
Yeah, exactly. Mike, did you want to chime in on that too? Oh, and just pop off mute there, Mike. It had to happen once.
I was thinking that what John was saying is really interesting, and one of the things is going to be giving tools, giving different tools to regulatory agencies so that they can actually process that data and make those decisions more quickly. That's going to be important, and you've seen all these attitudes change with COVID-19, and I think acceptance of new technologies across the medical industry that's a major thing that has changed. And yeah, I mean, I think on the side of patients and healthcare providers, there also has to be an acceptance of a new way of drug approvals and new ways of getting information to them more quickly. So they also will need new tools to get access to that information more quickly when they need it, to make all of these things speed up. And I think that there's been a shift in mindset where that actually feels more possible than ever before.
Yeah, I love that. You know, it's funny, I hadn't really thought about, because we typically think about industry moving fast, but it's just as important that the regulatory environments, government, and just the average person is able to kind of keep up and facilitate that. So applying, AI into the regulatory process probably is going to be a big help as well. And I think, again, with Run Roche, Fanny, and your team trying to really take a picture of whole health and a big systems approach, it seems like it's the absolute right time for the approach that you guys are taking.
I completely agree. I think everybody has acknowledged the fact that we can't do this alone. And it requires a collaborative effort across the public and private sector, multinational startups, research organizations, patient foundations, reimbursement, regulatory, to work in concert with one another. And the one challenge that we have with artificial intelligence, which is a big one, it's not necessarily technological, it's implementation. Yeah. And so we have to be able to iterate with one another, because with new technologies, there's new techniques, there's new validation procedures, there's new regulatory protocols and policies. So if we don't advance together, it doesn't matter if we have the perfect technology, we'll never be able to implement it as a standard. So that is our goal.
Yeah, love it. We've got the first question in from the audience. Regarding talent, what component of your team is harder to build and develop? The AI, IT piece professionals, or more of the health and drug professionals? Which is harder to find and build in a team, the health or the pharma? Maybe John, let's start with you. You're doing really a lot of both.
Well, I mean, I'm in the best place to possibly be. I mean, Edmonton, I've got Richard Sutton, Randy Goebel, Russ Greiner. I mean, I published my first paper with Russ 20 years ago when I thought he was crazy because he talked about the future, and he's a nice guy, so I kind of nodded and said, sure, well, we'll be able to do that, Russ. And he was right and I was wrong. And the big problem is often clinicians and administrators and regulatory type people and people that should actually be librarians rather than trying to help people. And there's lots of them around. But, we've got an incredible resource in Amy, and at least in Edmonton, I'm sorry, the weakness is on my side, not theirs.
Okay, fantastic. And Mike and Jessica, you're both here. Any perspective on that? You're working both on the health and the AI side. Which is harder to find for good talent?
Yeah, actually, for us, I would say Edmonton has been a great home for the company for some of the reasons John mentioned. But we've also been able to hire, we hire pharmacists, we hire pharmacologists, bioinformaticians, AI specialists. All of those programs at the U of A, at the University of Alberta, are world-leading programs. So we have an incredible pool of talent that we're able to draw from right in the city. So it actually makes it much easier for us to hire that kind of talent than it would be in a lot of other cities in the world.
Yeah, excellent. Jessica, any comment from you?
Yeah, I think I agree with John and Michael. University of Alberta has very strong AI base, and the work we are doing is kind of different from how traditionally AI will be applied, like speech prediction, text prediction, right? But what we are doing, we focus on the small molecule world. So we need more expertise on that. We need to know the biology. We need to know the chemistry. We need to know the physical of those small molecules. And I guess that is the expertise we are looking for, and we are kind of getting that in Edmonton. We see more and more talents there.
Okay, fantastic. So if you're a big company like Roche looking to come to someplace in the country, again, we've got a huge number of university students, graduates. I think we've got something like 130,000 students in our 7 post-secondary institutions. The University of Alberta, again, as Brent mentioned in the intro, is one of the leading top 3 centers for AI in the world. The Alberta Machine Intelligence Institute is then connecting that research to actually practice, which is why the Center for Excellence is here in AI. So Fanny, is it the volume of research or the quality of research and ability that's attracted Roche to the Edmonton region?
I think it's a bit of both. It's the fact that Alberta, as well as other provinces in Canada, have committed to artificial intelligence and have a provenance of, fantastic scientists, which further are grown through programs that are vested by both the federal and provincial governments as well as industry. We are all looking to these expertise to really elevate Canada, provide medical applications in an expedited way, and not only do this for Canada, but to be able to share that globally to help communities abroad. So there's no question that there is that wealth of expertise here.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks for that. So each of you are actively working in this field of drug discovery and AI. What excites you about what's coming next? What's just over the horizon? And Mike, maybe we'll start with you.
I think something that's really exciting, I think if we go maybe not just over the horizon, maybe a little bit farther over the horizon, I think that the potential is, having new ways to create drugs, new ways to discover drugs. There's this theme coming up with lots of what people are saying here today is, the potential of personalized medicine has been talked about for a long time, but if we kind of go all the way with a lot of these technologies, we could be creating drugs that are tailored in a way that has never been possible before to, groups of patients, where information is shared, knowledge is shared efficiently and quickly across the system, so that our vision as a company is that every decision that's being made in across the medical system, from drug discovery to the doctors, every decision is using the best possible information, is giving the best possible outcome to that patient. And today, it's not possible to do that because there might be something over here on the other side of the world that would have been the best thing for them, but it has a lot of years before it gets through the system. It has a lot of years before it gets into the hands of those doctors. So being able to shorten that up, there's so many opportunities with technology and with AI and all these different levels and layers that we've talked about today. And I think that future is, something that's really exciting. It's going to take a lot of people working together to get there, but the potential is huge.
Yeah, exactly. Fanny, I can see you nodding a lot during that. Anything you want to add from, again, a global company looking at these kinds of challenges?
All right, I'm just I nod because, as I look at the panel and I hear everybody's comments, I feel like we're more unified in our vision, and I think there was a while where all the disciplines were kind of separated within their own domains, and because we didn't necessarily cross-pollinate or have a forum to share our ideas and to essentially create supply chains to one another, we're sort of entering a new era, right? So it's this new era of collaboration and openness, because we know we can have exponential impact together as opposed to, incremental impact as individual organizations. So it's quite exciting.
Yeah, it's very exciting. And I'd say, John, some of the things that Mike talked about, you're doing or in the process of doing. So what might be science fiction for most of us is actually turning into science fact.
Yeah, and this is what gets me up in the morning with a smile on my face. So in Edmonton, we've got the Alberta Pre-Phase 1 Cancer Program. And this has 11 projects within the program. And these are 11 drugs that we've helped to take from inception. And in 3 cases, we've actually bridged the valley of death. And they'll be entering clinical trials, first in human, first in class clinical trials in Edmonton in the next 12 months. And these are all cancer therapies. These are University of Alberta discoveries. And for the first time in 2 decades, to my knowledge, a new cancer therapy with a Edmonton idea is actually going to be tested in people. And Of course, there are many steps along the way, and we've had to take brilliant academics who know nothing about business and coach them through the many steps and the many missteps that could be avoided to get them to this process. So for those of you out there who might be interested in some really interesting new molecules, these U of A spinouts are always looking for money, and they will be looking for global partners and I hope, if and I hope when we show that they're safe and efficacious.
Yeah, that's excellent. That is really, again, there's some amazing, exciting things happening here. We're going to try to squeeze in 2 more questions. So based off what John said, I think the next one makes a lot of sense. How do you recommend getting involved with what's happening here? And maybe let's do a quick kind of around the room. So Fanny, how do you recommend getting involved with what's happening in the Edmonton region?
So I would say, we're always open. You can contact us anytime. You can we will have some more sort of public communication outlets in the next couple of weeks. When within that, there'll be an intake process, but we're always open to conversation, new ideas. And also, if you're interested in any of our activities, we welcome a fully inclusive.
Fantastic. Thanks, Fanny. Jessica, how about you? How would you recommend people get involved?
Well, I think at 40-hour discovery, as we know, our unique platform generates data fast, and we have a joint venture which further incorporate AI into the drug discovery. So if you have any interest in any of this part, please feel free to come to us, and we are very open. We will be very pleased to discuss further possibilities.
Wonderful. Michael?
Yeah, we're always looking for new partners to work with, especially in the AI drug discovery space. And we're currently looking for some new partners for some of this newer product, the clinical NLP, trying to identify some more essentially pilot partners to work with on projects in that area. So that's something we would be open to discussions.
Okay, fantastic. And John, any final thoughts from you on that?
Well, certainly, if you're interested in the drugs that are being developed for cancer, that's on our website. You can contact us, www.prephase1.com. If you're interested in the microscope company, that's illumisonics.com. If it's something else, just email me. It's john.mackey@albertahealthservices.ca.
Perfect. And we're going to put all of that contact information into a little information pack we'll send out to everyone tomorrow. So again, thanks so much for all of that. We've got a question from the audience here. So this will be our last one. In Edmonton and Alberta as a whole, the various levels of government have put numerous programs and grants in place to try to foster innovation in AI. And this is how critical or crucial is government support, and does it play a large role in selecting where to set up operations? So maybe, John, do you want to take a first stab at that? How critical is government support in helping companies get going?
Well, it's absolutely essential in the current context in Canada. So ultimately, we don't have the hotbed of sophisticated investors in biotechnology in Edmonton yet, although there's a growing group of wonderful people that are supporting this. But because of the seed funding we've got from the Alberta and federal government, we've created entities that are now succeeding. And I think this is a virtuous cycle. We're going to have more sophisticated angel investors, and we've got some VC sophistication in Edmonton starting to be recognized as a place where things are actually happening. But hats off to the government, who saw that there was probably a better way forward than burning dinosaurs indefinitely.
So Mike, I could see you were nodding. Anything you want to add as a player in this space?
Yeah, I think it is very important, and I think we could go even further with it. We are competing not just with other provinces when companies are setting up shops, but we're competing with the whole world. And so we need to think about it at that level. I think sometimes we get too tied up in comparing ourselves to, are we as good as Montreal or something like that? But we're competing with the world. So we need to move quickly, and we need to build on the major successes that we have here, the talent that we have here, and build as quickly as we can.
Yeah, absolutely. And the government, the federal level, has put a lot of emphasis on the Canadian AI strategy, and the last budget put a lot of funding behind it. The province of Alberta is putting funding behind it. And the same thing's happening in health and drug discovery in particular. So it's a really exciting time for all of Canada, and I'd say for our region in particular. So thank you again for all of you for spending this time with us and sharing your perspectives. And a special thank you as well to the Trade Commissioner Service and their offices around the world in helping us promote this event. And I mentioned this earlier, we will be sending out an email tomorrow or in the coming days with a recording and some follow-up. And with that, I'm going to pass you back to Brent, who's moved a little deeper into our river valley, and he'll close us out. So Brent, back to you.
Thank you, Chris. I hope you enjoyed and saw value in our discussion. AI is transformative and can usher in substantial impacts across all sectors. The health and life sciences sector is certainly one of them. At a time when the world's attention is focused on pharmaceutical innovation like never before, and the field of AI is accelerating exponentially, the time is right to explore opportunities. The Edmonton region has access to talent, regional expertise, a strong and growing industry cluster, and a willingness to adopt an open data framework. Couple this with competitive costs for doing business here, and it is clear that the Edmonton region is an attractive destination for AI investment. Did you have a question today that this webinar didn't answer? Reach out to me to get more information. I welcome the opportunity to introduce you to our community and to provide more information about the AI ecosystem in the Edmonton region. And once travel restrictions end, I'd love an opportunity to introduce you to the region in person Thank you again for taking the time to attend this session, and take care.